are live, and I'm sure everyone is starting to pop in now. Hi, everyone. We are so glad that you're able to join us here today for our discussion all about cybersecurity and Web3. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time here, maybe new to Tech in Motion, my name is Emma Jordan. I'm a marketing manager at staffing and recruiting firm Motion Recruitment, who is the founder and sponsor of our Tech in Motion event series. Tech in Motion was founded with the goal of bringing together the tech community, and now we get to do that from all over the world, as we have people even joining us just today from Berlin and New Zealand and all over the US. But bringing that community together from all over the world and North America, and to share ideas and to inspire one another. So that's a little about us, but let's go ahead and get into today's topic and agenda so you know what to expect. And then I promise we will get straight into the discussion, because I know that's what you're all here for. The term Web3 has certainly been a buzzworthy term in 2022 so far. As the shift from Web2 and Web3 deepens and accelerates, security considerations are at the forefront of the conversation. The truth is, the success of Web3 relies heavily on innovation to solve for the new security challenges being created by different application architectures. Today, we are so excited to have the cybersecurity and Web3 experts here to share their expertise and insights with you in this innovative and rapidly evolving industry. Just so you know, today's webinar is being recorded, so it will be available on demand. If you have to pop out for any reason, no worries, we'll make sure to get you that link. And also feel free to ask any questions you have while the discussion is taking place. Our wonderful panelists will do their best to address every question as the conversation is going. And if we get overwhelmed with questions, we'll try to save some time at the end as well to go through those. Okay, so without further ado, I'm so thrilled to introduce to you our host for today, Sam Kamani. Sam is the Chief Web3 Strategist from Moonstream. Moonstream is the Web3 engine for blockchain-based games. Moonstream has handled over 1.5 billion in transaction volume to date. Sam is also the founder and host of the Web3 with Sam Kamani podcast, a top 20 Web3 podcast globally, and author of the Amazon best-selling The 30-Day Startup. Welcome, Sam. You can take it from here.
Thank you, Emma, so much for the introduction. And first of all, a very good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on which part of the world you are. I believe that you are here because you believe in the power of technology and you are an innovator, you are an early adopter. That's why you are interested in learning about Web3, because you want to be part of the future. You don't just want to wait on the sidelines and watch it happen. And that's why in today's session, we'd be talking about things such as Web3 and decentralization, advantages and disadvantages of Web3, top cybersecurity risks and considerations in Web3. And to discuss some of these topics, we have gathered an exceptional panel. First of all, we have got Daniel Jen, the security incidents expert at CERTIC. He has 7 years as an advanced capabilities lead for DoD Red Team's Department of Defense, 4 years as lead analyst in cyber incident response against nation-state actors. Some of his strengths include secure coding and algorithm design, creative out-of-box problem solving, spotting vulnerabilities, and logic flows. And if you love puzzles, then Daniel is your man. Second, we've got Ira Winkler. He is the Chief Security Architect for Walmart, where he leads Walmart's forward learning research to solve today's problems and also anticipate tomorrow's in cybersecurity. He is also an adjunct faculty at the University of University of Maryland in Baltimore, and he has authored not 1 or 2, but 7 books on cybersecurity. Most notable of them are Security Awareness for Dummies and You Can Stop Stupid, Stopping Losses and Accidents and Malicious Actions, which are out now, and you can check them out on Amazon. Later on towards the end, I will be asking Ira some questions about his book as well. Finally, we have got Chris Müller or Christopher Müller. And he is, he is the founder of Ecosys, Kunoro Finance, and eLabs. So he's not only a serial entrepreneur, a Web3 entrepreneur, but he also used to be previously a full stack developer and a systems admin in the past. He's also an expert of tokenomics to design protocol combinations so that DAOs and DeFi can be adopted in real world scenarios more securely and sustainably. So having said that, let's get into it. We'll first get into just sort of a generic discussion about Web3 and our panel's views on Web3. And then later on, we will have more sort of directed questions. And I would ask you that to, keep submitting your questions. I'll be getting them through Emma. She will be feeding me all your questions. So we will be answering them as the event goes on. Also, if you would like a particular member to answer them, then please do specify who you would like to. Otherwise, I will be choosing based on their experience and on their sort of knowledge and where they are, who they are directed to. So first of all, my first question is views on Web3. What are your views on Web3? And my first question is to Chris Müller. With all this hype around Web3 and DAOs and DeFi, since you work in that space, go for it.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here and welcome, everyone. Let's talk about Web3, DAO, and DeFi. I believe the good thing and the advantages about this is, first of all, to bring the accessibility back that the user who is doing data owns its data. This is the first thing I believe what you can say about Web3. So everything you do in Web3 is not owning, the company is not owning your data. It's about you, and this opens up much more other possibilities we'll talk about later, first of all. And Web3 in general, these technologies open up other cool technologies like DAO and DeFi, which means DAO means decentralized autonomous organizations, and it's all about governance. So it means that there's a governance decentralized between users. So you can imagine that the users altogether are the company, the organization at the end, and it's governed autonomously because of code. And it opens up other interesting advantages, because that means that you or me, we don't really need Facebook anymore because we can earn and own our own data here. And DeFi means decentralized finance. And the good thing here is that brings accessibility to finance once to the layman, to the average Joe, to everyone, and not only to the biggest investors or the biggest whales out there. Everyone can do good financial things at the end. And these all together combines real magic. This means that, for example, imagine if in Twitter, let's say like this, especially these days, this is interesting, Twitter is owned by these users and not just by a few entities of the company. That changes a lot. And let's imagine if a company like this has a revenue stream because of this data, that would mean that you can earn a reward of this revenue as well. And I believe this opens up a whole different future here, just in general.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Chris, I have a question for you around the decentralized nature of Web3 and your views on that, and sort of what sort of challenges decentralization add for any sort of security team or for anyone.
Yeah. The interesting thing when it comes to security, was it the question? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. This was for Ira.
So when you look at the whole decentralized, see, here's the thing: when everybody's in charge, nobody's in charge. And when you consider that, you're like, okay, just think about, even when somebody's in charge, consider if you've ever had a problem on, what was a good example I once had? Facebook. Did you ever try to contact Facebook, or even something even smaller, Fortnite, where you know somebody had an account hacked, and yet they had their account hacked, they had things of value stolen? Where do you go to try to get that back? There was no place, even in a centralized organization that's making a massive amount of money off of that, to go to get help. So when I look at a cybersecurity problem, when everything's decentralized, it's all great. And the word Pollyanna comes to mind, where everybody has this Pollyanna view that, oh, this is all decentralized and everybody's going to have, be able to make money off of their little, little bits of contribution. Like you send a tweet, you'll be rewarded by how many people read that tweet and so on. That's not the way it's end up going to work. I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to figure out how to monetize it. And they're going to figure out, even though it's decentralized, somebody's going to figure out how to monetize it. The criminals are going to figure out how to exploit it. And so when I look at it as a cybersecurity professional, I always look to history to figure out, okay, what happened in the past? What's going to happen now? Everybody says, oh, blockchain, it's super secure. We're reading about massive hundreds of millions of dollars of hacks that have happened, and you can't get your money back. And when I'm sitting here listening to this, I'm like, okay, great, it's all good. But the problem is, it's like, especially the decentralization takes away a lot of both the incentive and the financial motivation to essentially secure something, because everybody's relying upon a common set of security tools and so on. They're relying upon, bridge providers, and these bridge providers are being hacked and so on enough of a basis. So we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of losses. So I'll just leave it there. When you ask me, what are the security concerns? I mean, all you have to do is Google decentralized, DAO hacking, bridge hacking, and you'll already see we're experiencing everything. And the decentralized nature of it means you're going to have a lot of trouble getting a solution to all this. And even worse, getting somebody to investigate, especially when you're talking about decentralized, because then it's like, that means literally there's no government involvement. Who has jurisdiction if you get robbed, for example?
Yeah, very, very true. And thank you for that. Lots of you added, given me a lot more questions from that answer. My next question is for Daniel, and that is, what are your views as a cybersecurity expert and an expert in this field, when you look at the whole sort of the Web3 and the adoption and the hype around Web3? What are some of your main concerns, or what are your views about it all?
I have tons of concerns. The expert in Web3. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I guess I'll start from the beginning. I think developing in this architecture. So for people who aren't really aware of what Web3 is, everyone has their own way of describing it. The way I describe it is, it's basically kind of unlocking the power of encryption to verify information on a ledger using a protocol that's universal. So in other words, like, the magic of the internet happens in a lot of places because people agree on a language that, like, everyone's going to talk, right? And there hasn't ever been a agreed upon language where everyone's going to be like, you know what, we're going to record information on the internet on a peer-to-peer like architecture, and this is the language we're going to use, okay? And by some organic random way, okay, because Satoshi Nakamoto wrote a white paper, Bitcoin came out, and everyone's now using this as sort of the standard of, like, we're going to put stuff on the internet that's like cryptographically verifiable, and this is how we're going to record it, period. And it's decentralized in the sense that it's a peer-to-peer network. So just like in BitTorrent, for those of you guys who are old school, you take one guy down, well, the other guy has a copy, so like you can't take it all down, right? So what happens when you code like this? Well, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of loopholes here. where like, for example, here's a big security issue, right? A lot of developers, if you're coder, right, what are you used to? You're used to sucking, okay? Why are you used to sucking? Because all you have to do is when you make a mistake, you just fix it, recompile it, redeploy it, patch it up, right? We're almost trained as developers to suck. Okay, go fast, suck, get the compiler to fix it for you, you know, whatever, right? Q&A can fix it for you. Go patch it up, patch it up, patch it up, beta test it, patch it up, patch it up, patch it up. Well, in blockchain, it doesn't work that way, not easily, okay? Because once you post a smart contract onto the chain, it is stuck in an address. There are no updates. If you want to update it, you've got to repost new code on some other address, move all your customers. Now there's easy ways to do it. You can use a web front end, whatever. But the point is you're kind of stuck there, right? So it's not easy to just launch a patch when you find a problem. When you find a problem, that contract is vulnerable for life. Another problem is because of the way like things happen on the blockchain, you've probably heard of like mining and stuff like that, right? So basically like people are submitting changes and then these miners come in or validators, depending on what architecture you're using or what validation method you're using. And they're kind of like going, okay, we checked it out. This checks out. We checked out all this cryptographic stuff. It checks out. All right, good. We're going to post it. It's official. But when that happens, time sort of moves in this funny way, right? Because like this happens, then everyone checks stuff out and then that happens. And so you end up with a lot of issues here. And it might not be obvious, but like one of them is front running, which is when like these people can see what you're proposing to do, okay, before you do it. So like, you know, imagine in the stock market, if everyone could see what people wanted to trade before the trade was committed, they could be like, oh my gosh, giant hedge fund is about to sell all of its Tesla shares. I'm going to sell my Tesla shares right now. Okay, this happens organically in Web3. When you make a swap, when you make a trade on cryptocurrency, everyone sees it. All the miners sees it, not everyone. All the miners can see it before it actually is committed. And what they can and actually are doing is they will front run your trade. So if they see big trades happening, they'll trade before you. And guess what? Your profits are gone. Okay, that kind of stuff happens all the time. There's other issues I can talk about. Anyway, tons of issues for developers. Randomness isn't easy on the blockchain. So many things, but I guess we're talking generally, so I'll stop there. Big problem for users is users don't understand what Web3 is and they're using it. Okay, big buzzword, decentralization. We keep using it on this talk. Okay, what I think users don't realize is what that really means, because not everything on the blockchain is decentralized. And that's where people get
100%.
rocked. Okay, they get rocked, all right? What's really decentralized is what I just said, the peer-to-peer ledger, that like there is no centralized place where that information is stored. The blockchain is actually stored on a peer-to-peer ledger, so it's hard to delete out of the blockchain's history. But if you think decentralization means that like people can't control what happens on smart contracts and stuff, that's totally wrong. And I can tell you a million reasons why. You're going to hear people say, oh yeah, it's smart contracts are all on the web, or they're all on the blockchain. So you can just read the code. Everything's fine. You can be safe. No, you can't, because nobody reads the code. And even if they did, the person who wrote the code has to actually post the code. And if they don't post the code, you can't read it. Next, even if they post the code and you read it, do you really get it? Because like they can write stuff in it that's sort of like, hey, yeah, okay, this is a function anyone can call, but guess what? I'm going to add an extension to this function, a permission to this function that says only the owner can actually do this. So even though, yeah, okay, you can see it, only the owner can do it. And so only the owner can transfer all of its cryptocurrency to itself. Only the owner can mint without any funds. Only the owner can do a lot of crazy things that are just going to rob you, right? And you don't realize it. And then there's a bunch of inherent things too, like when you use, like if you guys have ever actually dabbled in crypto, when you use things like MetaMask and whatnot, and then you're like allowing permissions for somebody out there to like, you know, approve a transaction. You know what that approval is? It's an approval to let some stranger you don't know spend all your money. And you may not realize that you're doing that, but that's what you're doing. So there's a ton of trust that's inherent in Web3, almost to a fault, I would say to a fault, which is why I actually switched over to this industry, because I think it is seriously lacking in security. And I think a lot of it can be fixed through education. A lot of it can be fixed through redesign, but it's just going to take a lot of work, and we're really early. So that's my like long answer. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you have answered so many questions already. It's like one of the questions that someone had earlier submitted before we even got started was the difference in the architecture between Web 2 and Web 3. And, that is, I mean, you did touch on parts of it. Of course, there's lots of differences. And also the other thing is that not everything in Web 3 appears as it might be, as in like people, not everything is even stored on the blockchain or on chain. So it's like one of that example is NFT. The NFT could be stored, but could not also be stored on the on chain, and it could be somewhere in someone's cloud, a cloud server or somewhere else, and the NFT is just, the record is just pointing to that address, and what's there could be swapped around and could be changed. So those are the types of things, and as you say, yes, you can read the smart contract, but are people going to read it? People don't even read the terms and conditions that are written in English. No one reads them, so it's like we can't expect people to read a smart contract. It's pretty much saying like to someone who's illiterate, oh yeah, you can just go and read the ASCII code and just see what's happening in the computer. No one's going to do that. Or most people are not going to do that. Chris, my next question is for you, and that is, what are some of the most common hacks or security vulnerabilities you have come across?
Well, the interesting thing is what I believe. What's the toughest thing is, for example, if a contract is owned by someone and you don't realize, for example, that this contract is owned by one person or on one entity, and you don't see that this owner only needs to sign a function, for example, for paying out on his wallet address, and nobody realizes that all this money just flows onto his address from the founder. And a lot of scams was out there, and it comes to it was like totally investor friendly, the project looks totally great, and it was like, looks like the next big thing, everyone pays in, and the one, the owner just grabs all the money and take it away. It's a typical scam, a typical rug pull in this case. This is how you call this here. And I believe this is the common use when it comes to bad founders out there abuse Web3 just for quick money grabbing. I believe what's the best thing is to be security as a user is you don't need to get into code. Just research about the team behind that, for example. Research about the ownership. Who is owning the smart contract? Good projects mostly will mention in the documentation that there is a multi-sig wallet. This is the keyword you need to know here. If there's a multi-sig wallet, then you need to find out who's owning, who are the signers of this wallet. And so you can be more sure, for example, if is there one person who can grab all the money away. The next thing is, if you are more an expert in things and you want to get more advanced in it and more deeper, you can have a look into the code, how it's structured, and can have a look if there is if the owner can, for example, can transfer funds from wallets. And this is the most interesting thing. If you find out these two things, you can be a little bit more sure here if you should invest in or use the platform at the end.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, what I'm going to do is, I'm getting so many questions. I'm going to start asking some of them to the panel one by one. One of the question has been asked is around MetaMask, and are MetaMasks vulnerable? Should people use them? Ira, can you answer that question for people, or your thoughts on digital wallets and vulnerabilities there?
There are, sorry, I am I guess I'm trying to think of the right, I'm a curmudgeon when it comes to all this. And digital wallets and everything like that, I hear, okay, well, is it more secure? Possibly, maybe, probably. The fundamental part of it is it can and it will be hacked, just like all these other types of wallets and everything have been hacked over periods of time. It's just got to the point where you have to start seeing I mean, the question at the end of the day is, what are you better? And I'm drawing back to basic cybersecurity. When you're looking at what is the most secure, like, for example, the Windows versus Mac, which is more secure? Windows versus Mac, the most secure one is the one you know how to maintain best.
Yeah.
And saying I'm relying upon a Mac because there are no viruses for a Mac, well, you just aren't hearing about those viruses if you think there are no viruses for a Mac. And so the same thing with a MetaMask. You really just fundamentally, maybe better, maybe some wallets are more secure than other wallets, but it's still vulnerable to losing the passwords. It's still vulnerable to so many other things that you really just need to start looking at basic security. And the incremental security you're going to get over from a MetaMask over whatever else it's incremental, and you really have to just look at anything. You have to look at it like anything can be hacked. And if you have these wallets where money is, it is going to be a prime target. That even if MetaMask are more secure, it's only more secure until the criminals say, hey, probably the bigger wallets are going to be a MetaMask or whatever. And that's when they're going to start targeting those even more than other ones. And then you'll be, despite the technology being theoretically more secure, the actual wallet itself will be less secure because it'll be more targeted in one way or another, and the technology will be hacked in one way or another. I just don't like the one more secure versus less secure, because it's the only people who promise perfect security are fools, liars, or a combination of both.
That's a very interesting way to look at it, but I completely agree. Yes, it does depend on the adoption rate, and also where people see they will get the return on their time invested in hacking it. So it does happen like that. Very, very true. One of the other question that has been asked is about the 51% majority attack, and is there a proposal to safeguard Web3 until a larger majority have joined the network to prevent manipulation? I think this is quite it used to be more like when I was involved in 2017-18, this used to be more of a concern where there's lots of coins coming out in that sort of bull run, and they were not yet adopted by a lot of people, so it was easier to get 51% control of it. I don't know, Daniel, do you have any views on that side of sort of blockchain or cryptocurrencies that are mined that way?
Sure. The 51% attack is just completely impractical if you're talking about major chains like Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Yeah.
Right. And you talked about tiny tokens. Tiny tokens typically run on one of those chains. Right. So if you have like some token, they don't usually run their own blockchain. A lot of these tokens will just be like ERC20 tokens or like BEP20
Binance,
on Binance Smart Chain or on
Yes.
Ethereum. So like, I guess one of the solutions to avoiding the 51% attack is what people are going towards now, which is they're simply writing the layer one of a very popular chain. And so therefore they inherit the security of that popular chain. So I know some of you guys are new to Web3. So 51% attack means that an attacker has taken over 51% of the validators on a chain, right? Like I said, like whenever anything happens, right, you need like a majority of the people to agree that that's legit in order to become official. And so if you owned 51% of the network, then you could make anything you wanted official with some limitations, but we won't get into it. The point is you could do bad stuff. And so that's the attack they're talking about. But when you have so many people like working on Bitcoin, working on Ethereum, taking over 51% of that much computing power, it would take like the fortune of nations to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you really had that much power, I mean, so then people are going to move to proof of stake. So proof of work, you would need a fortune of nations. Okay. And it would be very expensive to do, like prohibitively expensive to the point where it doesn't make sense. And for proof of stake, if you really did own, for those of you that didn't know that stuff, if you really did own over 51% of all of the validators for a coin, that means you own a lot of the coin. And
Yeah.
you're not allowed to hack that and make people lose confidence in that coin, because then your fortune goes to zero. So I guess what I'm saying is the best mitigation is what everyone's going towards, which is leverage the security of a popular chain with lots of validation.
L1, yes.
You don't
Yeah.
have to worry about a 51% attack on a new chain.
Oh, that's fantastic. You described it so clearly. Next question for Chris and someone in the audience. I think Tom. He's asked that are NFTs a scam, or are we in a bubble, or are all cryptocurrencies just a bubble? Is Bitcoin worth 700 billion? All those sort of generic.
Yeah.
So yeah, your view on that.
Just the funny thing is everything which has a big overhype, let's say like this, you can tell kind of a bubble. But I'm careful with this because NFT, the most people link NFT with images, art and stuff. But NFTs are much, much, much more. For example, NFT can be used for certifications. And there's a lot of utilities, technologically, utilities in the background you can use NFTs for. So long term, no, it's definitely not a bubble. DeFi 2 years ago, you could say the same for DeFi. So DeFi was so overblowing, and everyone was like, yeah, okay, now everyone jumps into DeFi. What does that mean at the end? But it's always when something is overhyped, it feels like a bubble. And I'm always would say if prices get so on peak, so on top, be careful with investment, because there will be always a correction, so to say. And this correction is what we call the bubble, or what we are afraid of. But this has something to do with investment in general. Just be careful if there was a big bull one a long time. Be careful with just investing into it. It can be that will be a correction, and nobody can say that the correction will go up afterwards, depending on what project this is. So no, NFT is not a bubble. NFT is just another way of utility solutions, if you want to say, which are non-fungible. And there are reasons why you need that. For example, certifications. I love the example of certifications here.
Thank you for that, Chris. So my next question is about that how Web3 and all this and blockchain and decentralization is a very new territory for a lot of people, and how does one get sort of sufficient knowledge on what Web3 is all about and the security vulnerabilities, or one can start protecting, what resources they should look for. So first of all, for this, I would say that go and check out IR Winkler's book on books on Amazon, and they should get you started. Next thing is you can start following Daniel on LinkedIn and other social networks as well, in the panel, and he often shares about things like that. But what I'll do is I will hand it over to Ira to maybe explain to people how they can get started learning about these sort of topics, and what resources they should be looking for.
So when I look to learn anything, and I've been doing this way back since when I started figuring out, just for lack of a better term, there wasn't even a way to type in how to hack, for example. Seems like a lot of people, frankly, you got to do the research. Essentially, the better stuff will bubble up to the top. And when the better stuff bubbles up to the top, you see more commonly referenced sources, depending upon your level of expertise and background. There are clearly a lot of great articles that are out there by my co-panelists, for example, that you can read to get the basics. Just going to Wikipedia, for example, not exactly the most, let's just say, reliable source, or for information on occasion, but it does have some good basic information that's out there. Then I start looking towards, again, different articles, who's mentioning what. If you are so inclined, you could start to look for, go on to Google Scholar and start looking at the underlying technologies, for example, see, for example, which algorithms people are talking about, which algorithms people are proposing in academic environments. And you might not fully understand it, but at least you're understanding what type of technologies might come into play, so that you can learn the fundamentals and you can learn the basics. Because, there's a lot of talk about encryption. Do you really know what encryption is? Do you really know what a public key? I had to live with some of the origins of this, but do you know what a public key is? Do you know how it works? Do you know what hashes are? Things to that effect. Do you know why a hash is different theoretically than a blockchain, and how verification works from one to another? Too many people, want to learn or claim they want to learn and get into cybersecurity or something, but they don't want to put in the background. As far as books that are out there probably are some books, whether or not they're good or bad. Honestly, I haven't really looked at the relevant ones to Web3. Too many people are using Web3 as a buzzword. And frankly, to a large extent, it is a buzzword. Likewise, the metaverse, they're looking at that as just, okay, Web3, when the metaverse has been out there for decades, depending on which form of a metaverse you're looking at. For example, what's the more recent, the older ones, like playing Doom or something like that way back when, where you're everywhere. Somebody put up Second Life. Second Life was really the first large scale accepted metaverse, which was bizarre to me, that people paid to buy a house that I literally walked through, and somebody was yelling at me online to get out of his house. And I'm like, you actually paid money to sit in an empty building in a virtual world by yourself? You couldn't do that at home. But these things have been out there for a period of time. And now the way people are describing Web3, it fundamentally, in the grand scope, if you want an easy definition, it's the implementation of the blockchain. And I realize I'm oversimplifying it. The other panelists might really think I'm an idiot, but essentially it's the blockchain put on top of the web as we know it for the average layperson. And that allows, for example, for the enablement of Bitcoin and moving to decentralized authorities. So you don't have to go through like a credit card to make a transaction on the internet, which really is I really don't advise in many cases if you don't know how to go ahead and pull those back. Because once the money's gone, if you do it in Bitcoin, that money is gone. And the criminals
there is no customer service.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, it's still better than the customer service you would get from Fortnite still. But anyway, but all these things you got to understand. You've got to teach even if you have a book out there, even if I tell you this is a great book, you got to learn it on your own. I'm a person who believes in practical implementation of actually figuring out how to personally put something together, like a simple project, so I can feel it. And I'll just stop because I'm really just going on, talking about walking through a virtual house in Second Life really has nothing to do with this question in general, but it does in some way. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for that. I'd like to further explore this. Daniel, what are some practical steps people can take to make themselves safer when engaging with the decentralized web and all these new Web3 decentralized apps and stuff?
This is for me?
Yes.
I think Chris actually made some really good points to that already. I think I agree with most of his points. If you are not a super techie person, then honestly, your best bet is just to go with the crowd. And that's not a guarantee, right? But then at least if, a whole bunch of experts, everyone on the news and a bunch of people are customers, you can kind of hope that this is a pretty secure and legit service. If it's been used for a long time, like for example, like OpenSea, right? People like OpenSea as an NFT marketplace. Well, okay, I mean, it's had problems. There have been problems with it, but I mean, in general, it's kind of safe-ish, right? Yeah. If you're like jumping in, if you're deep diving into a new project with a bunch of anonymous like owners or whatever, then yeah, you're running a risk. So I think if you're not super tech savvy, go with the crowd, go with the tried and true blue chip services out there. If you are, or rely on a friend that you completely trust. And if you are tech savvy, then it's important to do your due diligence. Check if there is an audit. Okay, plug for my company, check if there's an audit on the smart contract, see if that, and even if there is, see if they've changed the contracts since the audit started. Okay? If like any shady stuff like that happened, okay? Like it's very important. Our audits actually show, what we audited. Sometimes they pay us and we audit only like 4 out of 10 smart contracts that they're using. Be aware of that, like the scope of the audit. Read the code yourself if you can, do some like OSINT for those of you that are in the hacker space, and like see if those devs are real. Because there's a lot of people that are putting like, no joke, stock photos of random people and saying they're legit people with LinkedIn accounts, but they're not real. So this is really the wild, wild west in Web3. At the moment, it's going to get better, but at the moment, it's kind of the way Web2 was in the old days of like modems and stuff. Like, you had like your little Nigerian kings, like whatever, emailing you money. So that's kind of where we're at now. So you just got to be careful out there.
Can I add something here?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
One thing, if you are in doubt, the good thing about MetaMask and Web3 is just don't provide anything. Don't invest money into it. Don't provide data as this is asked for. Just link. This is a good thing with MetaMask and Web3. Just connect your wallet, possibly, and have a look first of all. Try a little bit around, cook what they are offering you, what are other people's doing, and watch it. And go to the Twitter community, Discord community, read what the people are doing. So even if you're not technical, just watch it, for instance, and play around without any investment or data providing. And then if you feel better, you can do so later on.
Yeah, being part of, I have some sort of views on this as well, or one of the thing that you can do. And it's like I've been part of lots of different Discord servers and I've seen what is going on in the community. One of the most common hacks in this space is not through brute forcing, through the encryption or anything like that. It is phishing, which was used to happen even in the late 90s via email. And how this happens in this is in Discord through customer service. Customer service hacks are the most common. Say you are having some issue, you are taking part in a gaming sort of play, like, or metaverse or some sort of a Discord server or an NFT Discord server. You're having some issues, you ask for some support, and someone else with support sort of title in their name, they'll just call them customer service for OpenSea or whatever, and then they'll reach out to you saying that, hey, I saw your question, just go here, log in and we'll help you sort it. And then they make you log in through your MetaMask. So you are providing the information, you are still the weakest link in the whole thing, and then they'll clean out your wallet. So the other thing is, the wallet that's connected to Chrome that you are signing in have no money in that, or have $1 in that, so at the most you'll lose that if someone does hack it and stuff. So that is still one of the most common hacks going on, and people are losing insane amounts of money and being cleared out and stuff. So anything that's connected to your browser, any digital wallet, don't have much money in that if you're just going to be connecting to things that you don't know and stuff. So yeah, there's just one small practical. Yes,
well,
go ahead.
so let me, sorry, if I could just jump in here, because that's my area. That's what I've written books about. But because you got to realize that even something simple like you're talking about the phishing attacks and so on, don't forget credential stuffing, where if you reuse user IDs and passwords out there and you use that for your, Coinbase and other types of accounts and so on, you're pretty much, criminals will go ahead and reuse the credentials that they see hacked from other sites because people are lazy and don't keep, and basically reuse the same user IDs and passwords all over the place. And hacking identity, I just call this a broad scheme of hacking identities. It's infinitely easier and quicker to go ahead and steal a lot of coins in theory by going ahead and just trying to get individual users and cleaning out their wallets. Yes, there are the hacks against like the major organizations as well. Those are going to be like the North Koreans as a potential example.
Yes.
But the basic criminals who are out there, the people who are going to get pretty much wealthy, not stealing hundreds of millions, but 10,000 here, 100,000 there, 15,000 here, they're going to go against the identities. And we could talk about technical hacking and scams of like, sorry, I forgot the bait and switch for new, be the first to own like a flower coin or something like that. But again, identity hacking is gonna be it. And you really got to start looking out for good fundamental basic security on how you maintain your own accounts, both if you have a crypto provider, if you have an account at NFTs and stuff like that. I mean, I would just add that I had a friend who basically, well, he's not, I must admit, not a friend. I know a guy, and he basically was able to go ahead and change NFTs, by hacking, essentially, not even hacking, by manipulating OpenSea and a couple other things. He was able to prove, here's what the NFT should be, and here's what I was able to get it to point to. So you really got to watch out on so many fundamental issues, but don't get overwhelmed with all the technical hacks and nation state hackers. Focus in on really just protecting yourself from good cybersecurity perspective.
Be aware of your key. There was one YouTuber which is a little bit bigger. I recorded his screen and hadn't noticed that the key was seen, and he was wondering 2 weeks later why all this funds was lost. Well, yeah, you need to be careful with these things. The key is all what you have. Don't show it to everyone. Never, ever share it. Even if this is a friend, your partner, whatever, let them do its own wallet and share your funds, but never, ever share your keys.
There's still, so many people share it online, just using the customer service sort of a hack on Discord or different phishing hacks, just like Ira said. And what my sort of analogy to that is, like, you could have the most secure bulletproof car, but if you hand someone the keys and then they are inside, it will be very hard for you to then get in and you lost it. And I can see, like, Daniel's already answering some of the questions in the chat to some of the questions being asked by users, and some of them are like, use cold wallets, like Ledger and Trezor. There's quite a few sort of cold wallets that you're not connected to your Chrome, your browser, whatever browser you are using. And then one of the other question was asked was on quantum encryption and all that. And as Ira said, as Daniel said, like, you don't need to worry about all that. Just do simple stuff to protect yourself.
Well, sorry, if I could just interrupt quickly, because this is one of the things I've been researching at the end of the day. In the first place is quantum computers are just faster computers. Get over it. All of a sudden, faster computers don't have magical abilities that other ones don't. They can just do calculations faster. They're not yet at the point, and probably 4 or 5 years minimum, at the point of really going in wholeheartedness after like encryption and other cybersecurity controls. And, I worked at NSA, and we used to have this thing where, how strong does encryption have to be? The issue is strong enough. I hear about all these people saying, well, this encryption can be hacked, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter if, for example, if I am protecting a one-time transaction that's going across the internet at one point in time, I just need the encryption to last that long. On the other hand, if I'm putting a satellite in orbit and the satellite has hardware encryption, we're going to need to make sure that encryption is going to be strong enough to last, give or take, the life of the satellite, so that the satellite communications can't be hacked. On the current state, it's like, what do you need? The quantum computers are not stable enough to really be a great threat to cybersecurity for years to come.
Yeah, that's right. And like I mentioned, most of the hacks happen, they have nothing to do with brute forcing the encryption. They're hacks that completely bypass the encryption process. So like, it's not going to help magically cure security issues.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, that's fantastic. Another question that I think I'll have to go back to Daniel for this one, and that is that, Web3 and implications on healthcare, because people hear about like moving the records to sort of decentralized web and things like that. So someone in the audience wants to know, what impact will Web3 have on healthcare as far as keeping important information secure?
I think that's a very hard question, because it really just depends on how these healthcare industries choose to use Web3 to leverage it, right? Web3 is just like I said, it's sort of like a universal ledger that people have agreed to, that has built into it like cryptographically verifiable information. So like how it's going to impact an industry, really, it's kind of like, it's hard to predict, right? The sky is kind of the limit. If there's ever anything that you need to publicly post, any information you want to publicly post, but you want it to be, provably from someone else, or only limited to a certain number of people who have a certain key, then that's where it would be applied, right? I think for most industries, not just the healthcare industry, a lot of, I guess, middleman sort of services are going to be under threat of being basically dinosaured out because of the fact that Web3 exists. I think a lot of sort of like information sharing might also get impacted. Instead of having to have cloud services or centralized sort of databases and warehouses where you store information, you might leverage the blockchain in certain cases, but that might not be as disruptive as the middleman services.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, there are some applications that are much better for Web3 than others. Healthcare, not really. I mean, healthcare, if you're talking about the security of patient records, for example, that really has a very, Web3 is not encryption for securing patient records in theory. That's where people are somehow losing it. It's not this magical encryption bubble. On the other hand, maybe if you want to go ahead and like, supply chain type of hacks where people are getting counterfeit goods into the supply chain, maybe you're better able to go ahead and track the legit, verified source in there, assuming somebody can't do that. Land records, for example, that's like the basic thing where governments currently say X person owns this piece of land. And now we are recording the transaction. Now person Y owns this piece of land. And that's a potential application or an example of, verifying the ownership of something. NFTs, like, okay, if you really have something of value, I don't know why, Gary Vaynerchuk is selling his stick figures and people want to buy. Great. We now know Gary Vaynerchuk, that's really Gary Vaynerchuk's stick figure. I could take a copy of it and post it all over the internet, but they'll say, I own it. Like those idiots who bought an image of the original Harry Potter book, who thought they therefore owned all the rights to Harry Potter. People could photocopy that book and put it all over the internet. They can claim, well, I actually own it. And everybody be like, so what? You really got to go ahead and know what you're getting when you talk about Web3. And for all practical purposes, it's very limited. It's not like it's going to somehow magically replace the entire internet. It's just a different way of doing, I'll grossly say, of doing business on the internet. It's not going to replace the internet. It's not going to go ahead and be the security to put on top of it. It's just verifying transactions, which in some cases includes Bitcoins as an example.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very, very true. The counter argument from Gary Vee is that, he gives you access to his conference. And if you have his NFT in your digital wallet, then you get access. And that's the only way to go to his conference. He will have a Zoom call with you if you own some of his NFTs. and if you can prove it. So there are access control solutions where if you sign in with your sort of NFT that checks in your wallet, you have that NFT, and if it does, you get access to his calendar and you can book a Zoom meeting one-on-one with him. So just like people pay like $2 million or whatever to have lunch with Warren Buffett once a year, he's just trying to do this at a scale on Zoom through lots of people around the world. And that's part of the reason why people have bought into his brand. And there are a lot of people, young people, who look up to him for advice on career and those sort of things, who want to, you know, get advice from him on social media or whatever it might be. So, but as you said, it does not transfer everything. That type of things have been done in the Web2 world as well as Web3. So
Right,
there's nothing new.
But
Yes,
consider
yes,
what
yes.
you just said. Gary Vaynerchuk essentially was selling these mythical NFTs really is a form of just a different type of transaction.
Yeah.
You know, a different type of issuing a ticket with a barcode on the internet. It's
Yes.
just a different way of doing it. And he's created this. I mean, believe me, I think this guy deserves so much credit in the world for taking something and then essentially just doing it in a different way and generating a whole new revenue stream for himself on doing it. That's awesome. I applaud anybody who figures out a legal way of making money that's not overly abusive. But I think there was the whole push to get NFTs. It's like, no, you're not really buying artwork. You know, you're buying a ticket for access, which you could have bought in a dozen other ways. And that's my big thing.
Mostly, I wanted to say, when it comes to NFTs, why they have value, for example, mostly it's just because of you can participate to a story, to a history. For example, why is the Mona Lisa worth what it's worth? Well, not because the Mona Lisa looks so good. It's because of the history and who has participated to the history at the end. And this is what an NFT at the end makes valuable as well. So, and everyone tries to do so and by their own, and everyone tries to sell an NFT to make the big new history. So this is why it feels so published, but this is why an NFT is so interesting at the end. It gives you the certification to take part of something. What it is in abstract way can be everything at the end. It's up on you and me what we do out of this.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, of course, there are, we are going more into the NFT use cases than the security, but yes, I mean, for the one of the company that I work for, Moonstream, for them, they solve the problem for game developers where they are able to put assets from the game within the game, because there's so many different assets, and to do it at scale, they are able to do this for game developers because of the other assets being sold on the gray market. So the game developer can easily prove. I mean, these are all digital assets. They've always been digital assets, even in the Web2 world. But now it's easier for them to prove that they created it and it's authentic and it's real and stuff. So, but once again, it's a very niche case. But look, I think we can talk about this for the next 2 hours. What I want to do is give the stage to all the guests on the panel, and I want to know what their ask is, what if they have any parting thoughts, or how you can connect them, follow them on social media and all that. So take it away, Daniel. Any parting comments, and what's your ask? Are you looking for anything? How people can connect with you, find you?
Not really. I just kind of came because I thought it'd be a good time. Yeah, and I'm always happy to sort of share whatever information and insights I have on Web3 in general, because it's a space I'm really excited. I really believe that there's a lot of potential to do a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, I didn't get into the NFT debate, but I have my own opinions on that too. You know, there are a lot of security problems in it, but that's just the nature of the beast for any new crazy industry that people just aped into. I have about 20 followers on Twitter, but here's my handle in chat, and my DMs are open. So if you guys want to talk to me, have any questions, I know there were a lot of questions about how to get into the space and everything. I think I can answer them. I just didn't do it on this panel. Like I said, I was a Web2 hacker for like 10 years. And then in like the end of 2021, I simply self-taught myself Web3, and now I'm supposedly a super expert. I won the Founders Award at CERTIC, which is like the highest award that they give you in the company. So like, you can learn it really quickly, and I can give you guys advice on that. So if you have any questions that you didn't get answered this time, go ahead and just DM me on Twitter, and I'll happily try to make time to answer them, unless I get like over 1 million questions, and then, you know, sorry. But that's about it. I don't think, if you're interested in working for CERTIC or you have questions about CERTIC, we are hiring. If that appeals to you, let me know.
Yep, that's fantastic. Thanks, Daniel. I'll put your Twitter Twitter handle on in the chat for everyone to see. Next one, Chris. Any parting thoughts? And if you have an ask, and how do people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, hey. So I would say what we do, basically, we have multiple projects we are working on, but what the mother of all projects, so to say, is the Ecosis network. I will share the link in the chat. What we want to do is we want to, with a network of partners, we want to build a gateway for secure and verified Web3 applications, because we believe this is missing somehow. We have multiple other awesome projects, but because of the topic what we're talking today, if you're interested in some resources, and if you're interested in a documentation what Web3 fundamentals are, you can have head over to ecosis.network. Send it over here. And of course, you can reach out to us. The team members are on the landing page as well. There are our community channels. So if you find any project interesting, or you want to know more about Web3, head over to Ecosis Network, or just if you want to talk or make the next big round or something like this, contact us directly via LinkedIn, Twitter. It's all on the webpage. I would say it's the easiest way. It's a gateway.
Yeah. And sorry, I guess I'm last. Sorry, I'm just assuming.
Yes, good.
But
I was just going to say that I've already shared the link to all your books on in the chat with everyone in the audience. But go ahead, Ira, you are next. Would love to hear about you.
Yeah. So anyway, my parting thoughts are: look at in general on the topic. Web3 is essentially a set of tools to provide a certain set of functionality. Don't look at it anything mystical, anything more or less, because too many people, I think, become overwhelmed by this concept of Web3. What is it? Oh my God, is it a new World Wide Web or something? Just fundamentally look at what it is. Then from a second perspective, obviously buy my books. Of course, You Can Stop Stupid and Security Awareness for Dummies are the latest. And then I will say Walmart, we're hiring. We announced we have 5,000 openings in global technology as a whole. And about 100 of those are in the InfoSec group. So anybody interested, let me know. And you can reach me on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm kind of easy to find.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much to Ira. And finally, I would like to say, if you work in gaming and blockchain, feel free to reach out to me. I have put the link to my company in the Zoom sort of chat for everyone as well. And thank you so much to all the panelists and the guests for sharing all your knowledge and advice, and hope all of you have a remaining great day, whatever the time it might be in your part of the world. I'll hand it over to Emma.
Yeah, thank you so much, Emma. Sam, as you said, I feel like we could have just been here all day. So many good questions. Like we'll have to do some kind of follow-up or something. Thank you to all of our wonderful panelists for being here, and to Sam for hosting. This was such a great conversation. And thank you to everyone for attending today. As part of the Tech in Motion community, we want to let you all know we have some very exciting things coming up. You definitely want to follow us on all of our social. You can go and check out right now for some teasers. That's some very exciting things coming up. I don't want to spoil the surprise, so that's all I'm going to say. Follow us on social so that you can be in the know, the first to know what is about to happen, and then also so that you can know of all the events we have coming up and some really cool follow-up stuff I'm sure we will do on this topic as well, and with each of these wonderful panelists and participants. So thank you again so much for sticking around, for being here today, and we will see you at the next event.
Thank you very much, Emma.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.